and making sure our streets are safer for pedestrians. We are thrilled about a mega grant award for the reconstruction of the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge and the announcement of our Safe Streets for All program. This bridge behind me was constructed in the 1950s with a 50-year lifespan, designed to service a third of the vehicles that cross it today. And those crossings will only increase as the city of Lake Charles is currently in the midst of tens of millions of dollars worth of public-private partnerships along our lakefront. With Port Wonder, a brand new state-of-the-art children's museum, and Science Nature Center acting as the linchpin. This bridge is a key gateway to a number of local investments that are part of a larger global conversation on energy security. Southwest Louisiana's role in American energy independence and the support of our international allies' energy policies is even more poignant a topic due to the Russian incursion into Ukraine. Secretary Buttigieg, I know you know this, but I just want to state it bluntly. This is not a Lake Charles bridge. This is not a Louisiana bridge. This is an American bridge, vital to the economy and commerce of our nation. And we're also grateful today to be a part of the Safe Streets for All program. This award will enable us to develop a comprehensive safety action plan and prioritize improvements to our pedestrian and bicycle network. In closing, I again thank Secretary Buttigieg, Governor Edwards, and Secretary Wilson for being with us here today in Lake Charles. Your presence means much to this community. Thank you for, again, bearing witness to the grit, determination, and tenacity of this community. Thank you all, and I'll introduce Secretary Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. It is absolutely a gorgeous day to be in Louisiana and in Lake Charles. Thank you all for joining us today as we celebrate the $150 million mega grant that the Louisiana Department of Transportation will receive from the United States Department of Transportation for the Calcasieu River Bridge replacement. You will hear all of these speakers talk about the importance of this project, but none more important than to the citizens who are going to see this project finally come to fruition. For in 2016, when this administration took over with this governor and yours truly as secretary, we had $0. We had a 20-plus year environmental process. We had no procurement underway. And today we have marked success where we see a light and a bridge at the end of that proverbial tunnel. Making sure a project of this magnitude has adequate funding and financing is a key component to considering the impact that this new bridge can and will have on the economy and the tens of thousands of motorists all across the country who use this infrastructure. Along with the $150 million mega grant, there have been other key goals that are helping this essential project move forward. Just this past January, the U.S. Department of Transportation approved up to $1.5 billion in private activity bonds to the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge replacement. Private activity bonds, called PABs, allow for low-interest borrowing for developers that are chosen to work on this bridge project. If they take advantage of it, and this is a huge incentive having worked with all of the teams competing, this could save them an estimated $100 to $140 million, which is going to reduce the overall cost of this project. Neither of these funding sources or financial successes would have been possible had the bipartisan infrastructure law not become a reality. And you will hear the Secretary talk about the President standing almost in this very same spot advocating for that bill. As I stand here today, I'm happy to tell you that there is $800 million in public funding available that includes a significant portion from the state of Louisiana to add to the federal contributions. In this 2016 year, as I said, this project was almost at scratch in the eyes of the department and this public, but we're here today marking this success. Safety is a major component of this new bridge. The existing bridge has its limitations, as you all may know. It is safe to travel across, but it is in fact steep, it lacks the shoulders, and with this new bridge, motorists can expect an I-10 corridor that will be upgraded to current design standards, including flatter curves and wider shoulders. Now, I'm a dissect or move away. I just messed that up in a big way, didn't I? I'm going to diverge from my notes to make one other statement about safety. This secretary has taken safety to heart. He launched just last week the National Roadway Safety Strategy Call to Action campaign after having awarded all of our major areas significant dollars to put together safety plans. And he's asking stakeholders to commit to specific actions in 2023 to reduce serious injuries and fatalities on our roadways that have absolutely reached a crisis level. Well, Mr. Secretary, I'm proud today to deliver a signed pledge on behalf of the Louisiana Department of Transportation stating our commitment to actively reduce fatal crashes by adopting the safe systems approach that you advocate for. More specifically, we will concentrate on speed management, on the state's first highway safety corridor that this governor signed into law, covering 18 miles of I-10, providing feedback signs for speed as well as electronic enforcement. Just last year, 876 lives were lost in a total of 822 crashes in Louisiana. In this parish, there were 31 fatalities, and 31 families are no longer the same. We share your commitment to Destination Zero, and we're very excited to be a part of that. And I have this pledge for you to take back to Washington as well. The new construction, getting back on my script, will increase the mobility opportunities that exist on I-10. We will have a grade separated railroad for KCS and UP in Sampson Street in Westlake. The mayor likes that. This will avoid the possibilities of vehicle and train crashes at those intersections. We've also been working hard on getting the environmental approval for this project, as I said, for nearly 2 decades. That was unacceptable to me and, of course, this governor. Public feedback from last year's public hearing is currently being reviewed and incorporated into the final environmental impact statement. Our key partner on the ground here is West Bollinger with Federal Highways. They will then review that final environmental impact statement along with the record of decision that's going to govern the actions of the contractor and the state as we build this bridge. And then we will anticipate this final record of decision being issued in the second quarter of this year. Completing that environmental process opens up the eligibility to spend all of the federal dollars that we're receiving on final design and construction, and it's a prerequisite for a number of permits that are essential to deliver this project. Along with finalizing these environmental documents, we've been engaged with the P3 Public-Private Partnership procurement process for nearly 2 years. The department is working with the shortlisted proposers to finalize their RFPs and to get ready to design, construct, and finance, and then build this project on our behalf from I-210, I-10 on the west side to Ryan Street on the east side. The final RFP will be issued in the first quarter of 2023, and in the second quarter of 2023, we expect to receive those proposals and evaluate them. And once those proposals are selected, or the winning proposal is selected, it will undergo the local and legislative reviews, as well as the final public hearing for the procurement through the Joint Transportation Department. DOTD continues to take the necessary steps to move this very important project forward with this $150 million grant that we're receiving today. Without the support of our governor, our local delegation, the local leaders in this community, and of course the hard-working men and women of the Department of Transportation and our private sector partners, this grant would not be possible. And so to each and every one of you, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. And most importantly, I wouldn't be here as secretary if I don't say thank you to this governor who has been known as the infrastructure governor across the state of Louisiana in every conversation I have. Please welcome Governor John Bel Edwards.
Thank you, Sean, and thank all of you for being here. And I want to second what the mayor said. This is a beautiful day, especially after the weather we had that came through just yesterday. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much, and welcome to Louisiana. We are very happy to have you here. We're happy to have all of you here celebrating with us the announcement of a $150 million mega grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation to replace the Calcasieu River Bridge, that bridge that you see behind me. Just to put that into perspective, the $150 million mega grant is the largest grant ever received by the state of Louisiana from the U.S. Department of Transportation. The largest ever. And George, you'll be happy to know it's the third largest grant given out under this program. coming right here to Lake Charles, Louisiana. So I congratulate Secretary Wilson and the department for their work in getting this secured. You all know, and he just mentioned it, he has worked tirelessly for 7 years to improve roads, bridges, ports, airports, you name it. That work is paying off. We have more infrastructure projects underway than at any point in the history of our state. But this announcement today is only possible because of the bipartisan infrastructure law. So let me stop for a moment and thank President Biden, Secretary Buttigieg, and I want to thank the members of our congressional delegation who voted for that legislation. I want to thank Senator Cassidy, and I want to thank, if you bring that to me, I'd appreciate it. Because if I leave, it'll off. I want to thank Senator Cassidy and Representative Carter because they voted for this bill, and that's incredibly important. And I want to thank our local partners. Mayor Hunter, it has been a joy to work with you on this and so many other things. And I say joy, so much of what we were doing was recovering from hurricanes. There's nothing joyful about that. But I've always enjoyed the working relationship that I've had here with the parish and with the city. But I'm especially grateful for Secretary Pete Buttigieg for coming here today to highlight the need to push forward on this critical project. I think his presence here today sends a strong message. A new bridge will not just be good for Southwest Louisiana, not just for Louisiana, but for the nation as a whole. And it was in May of 2021 that President Biden was right here with that bridge in the backdrop when he was making the case for the bipartisan infrastructure law and talking about the promises of that bill. And now we're back after its passage with $150 million to replace that bridge. So that is a promise made, that is a promise kept, and I am very appreciative. We know that I-10 is one of the most important cargo and passenger routes anywhere in the country, and one of the more heavily traveled, I suspect, anywhere in the world. That bridge, it's older than I am. In fact, I'm looking out there. I don't know that anybody here is older than that bridge. And George, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but it is 70 years old. As Sean mentioned, it's outdated. It lacks safety features. And so if there's an accident because there's no shoulder, you're automatically down to at least one lane, assuming that you can keep that one open. And so traffic bottlenecks, and it's just not a good situation. But still, tens of thousands of vehicles cross it every single day, including truckers hauling valuable freight and commerce across the I-10 corridor. It's just important that we upgrade our infrastructure. And we have an opportunity before us here in Louisiana and in the country that we haven't had literally in generations. And I am appreciative for the bipartisan infrastructure law and all of the good that it's bringing to Louisiana. By the way, not all of it in roads, bridges, ports, and airports, although those are incredibly important. We're plugging orphan wells. We're delivering broadband across the state of Louisiana that's going to be true high speed and it's going to be affordable, and so many other things that we're doing. And I'm very appreciative of the cooperation that we've had with the Biden administration, with Secretary Buttigieg, and working with Mitch Landrieu, who is the administrator and is certainly no stranger here to Louisiana. And I want to focus for a minute on that word bipartisan, because it is so important when we can come together as Americans first and foremost and do those things that we agree on. And the day that we can't agree on infrastructure is going to be a truly sad and tragic day for our country. But we're here celebrating because we could come together. And I want to thank members of the legislature in Louisiana too, because we've been able to do that. Senator Abraham, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your work. And nobody has been more involved in infrastructure, particularly in Southwest Louisiana, than Senator Abraham. And I think more bipartisan success stories like this are important for our country and for our state. So I'm going to close there, but I do want to finish where I started, thanking Secretary Buttigieg for coming to Louisiana for this $150 million. And you know, when we look at it, we have $800 million in funding available for a new bridge with a revenue stream going forward that will add to that each year from vehicle sales tax collections. There was not a single dollar when I became governor. There had been no environmental work. There was not a plan, but yet we had a bridge that was decades old and decades into a period when it needed to be replaced. And so I welcome the assistance from the federal government to help make this replacement a reality. And now I want to invite the man of the hour, the Secretary, to come up and give you all some remarks and explain to you why he chose to come to Lake Charles today. So if you would, please help me make welcome Secretary Buttigieg.
Thank you very much, Governor. Thanks to all of you. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I want to thank you for lining up such a beautiful day. Mayor, when I was mayor, I always said that if it was bad weather, I said it was the county was in charge, and if it was good weather, I said it was us. So I don't know if you got to have words with your parish police council or not, but to all of you, thanks for the welcome. Look, we want to work with every state and territory in the country, and we do. But it makes a big difference to work with a governor who understands the importance of infrastructure. And that is certainly the case here, Governor Edwards, with your leadership, and it's made a big difference in this partnership. So thank you. Mayor, I want to thank you for leading your community through good times and challenging times. The job has not gotten any easier since I proudly wore the title of mayor. And your readiness to work in a bipartisan fashion with this administration, with anybody who can benefit Lake Charles, reflects so well on you and your team. I know we have the mayor of Westlake here, as well as state, parish, and other leaders, and we know that it takes collaboration across every level of government to get good things done. It's part of why we're here. I want to thank Sean Wilson, who has been a terrific partner, both in his capacity leading the state DOTD and as the leader of AASHTO, the National Association of State Departments of Transportation, at a moment when state departments of transportation have had more to talk about and work on and act on than any time in our lifetimes. It's been such a pleasure to work with you. And I really take to heart and appreciate this safety pledge. We are facing a crisis when it comes to safety on American roadways. We can do something about it. We are doing something about it. And no one level of government, no jurisdiction, no entity can do it alone, which is why we have this call to action and why that pledge means so much. I know there are a lot of friends from the unions and the building trades here. Thank you for being here. We are excited about all the good paying union jobs that are going to come out of this and the other work in the infrastructure law. And you remind us by being here that we are not just building roads and bridges. We're building livelihoods. We're building family savings. We're building those pathways into the middle class that are so important, and you were at the heart of that. And I want to mention that I had a good conversation with Senator Cassidy on the way down here. He can't be here because of responsibilities he has in the Senate. But I want to recognize his vision in reaching across the aisle, working with President Biden to make today possible. Our president often says that there's no such thing as a Democrat or Republican bridge. And this is a good reminder of that, and I'm so appreciative of the senator and of everybody who helped to make this a reality. Also had a conversation on the way over with Mitch Landrieu, my colleague, who does so much to help make sure that this infrastructure bill is rolling out well, who educated me on the proper pronunciation of Calcasieu. Hope I got that right. As well as on everything that this region has been through. And everybody knows, whether they have a direct connection to this region or not, if you're paying attention to American infrastructure, you know how important this bridge is, certainly to jobs and to waterfront attractions and the quality of life here in Southwest Louisiana, but also to a supply chain that impacts the entire country. And as was mentioned earlier, this is a bridge that, as important as it is today, is still relying on construction from just after World War II. Structurally and functionally deficient today, built to handle far fewer than the 80,000 daily crossings that are happening. And because of the way I-10 narrows from 6 lanes to 4, and the steep 4 lanes at that, it creates a lot of delays and contributes to a crash rate that's about 66% higher than what is typical in this state. And I want to recognize that this does come in the context of what this region has faced and the resilience that this region has shown. I saw the Weather Channel refer to Lake Charles as America's most weather-battered city. Now, President Biden was proud to deliver over $1 billion to Louisiana in disaster recovery funds, but he knows we can't stop there. And as Calcasieu Bridge has been considered the primary bottleneck affecting evacuation efforts during many of those recent weather emergencies, that just gives us one more reason to have a sense of urgency around this work. I recognize that a lot of people have been working on this for well over 20 years, waiting for the right kind of partnership from Washington. And I remember the news reports during that visit that each of those who spoke before me mentioned when President Biden was standing not far from where we were today. And a media reaction that sort of said, okay, we're glad you're here, but you're about the umpteenth politician to come here and say we were actually going to get this bridge done. In fact, one local journalist, and I'm not sure if it's one of you, wrote at the time of the visit, "Here we go again." So there's been a lot of waiting. A lot of promises here and across the country. Infrastructure weeks, as they were called, that came and went without result, which is why that skepticism happened. If words could build bridges, we would have got this done a long time ago. But talk doesn't build bridges. Funding does. Cooperation between different political parties and levels of government does. And on those fronts, the leaders you see here and our president, Joe Biden, are delivering. We heard loud and clear that our generational moment of investment in America's transportation infrastructure has to mean a generational investment here in Southwest Louisiana. And that is why, less than 2 years since President Biden was here, drawing attention to this bridge and America's infrastructure needs, we are so proud to award $150 million to help Louisiana build a new Calcasieu Bridge for future generations. That new bridge is going to be wider, with 6 lanes, shoulders, a less steep approach, improved on-ramps. And over the lifespan of that new bridge, it's estimated to save people about 115 million hours in travel time. It's projected to have 457 fewer crashes in this area because of those new designs. 457 times a family is not going to have to get that phone call. The nature of safety work is its most successful moments are things that don't happen. So you never know the names of the people who will be spared that terrible phone call. But it could well be one of us. It's also going to help with those extreme weather evacuations. It's going to allow first responders to get to where they need to be more swiftly and more safely. And the benefits go well beyond where we're standing, to shelves across Louisiana, across the country. This new bridge is relieving one of the worst freight bottlenecks in America along one of the most important supply chain routes in America. So the goods can move quicker, and that is part of our fight against inflation. As I mentioned earlier, to build a bridge, you need funding, and you also need a lot of skill. You need a lot of work. This bridge project is going to lead to over 16,000 jobs. And companies are going to be required to submit plans for training and hiring from the local community, making sure underserved populations get included in that opportunity. And this is just one example of the Mega Projects Fund that was created by President Biden's infrastructure law. We just finished that first year's worth of funding. And I want to make sure you know, just as a point of pride, how competitive this round was. We got 138 applications, and we were able to fund 9 successful projects, including this one. So it reflects very well on everybody who's part of putting this plan together. And there is a direct line, a cause and effect between that bill that Senator Cassidy and Representative Carter voted for and the shovels that are going to be in the ground building this new bridge. And I've noticed even the members of Congress who did not vote for this bill have been very happy to see the benefits of the projects coming to their neighborhood. And this isn't just the only thing we're funding in this area. We awarded funds just last week, as was mentioned, to help the city of Lake Charles develop designs to make the road safer. And I want to thank the mayor and the city for their commitment to safety along with the state. Last year we awarded funds to build 2 new passenger boarding bridges at Lake Charles Regional Airport. And those are just a handful of 20,000 good projects underway across the country. That is what President Biden's vision for building a better America looks like. It's part of that strategy to build our economy from the bottom up and the middle out, and the strategy's working. I had the privilege of a front row seat, actually it was a second row seat, but still pretty good, on Tuesday night as the president described to the country what has been achieved. Unemployment, the lowest it's been in 54 years. Union membership growing again. Wages up, inflation down. And as a child of the industrial Midwest, I'm especially glad to see how manufacturing is coming roaring back in this country. 800,000 new manufacturing jobs created since President Biden took office. A number that's going to go further with investments in industries that are growing, including jobs coming to Vidalia with a new EV battery manufacturing plant. And those American-made products, built in America, made in America, sold in America and around the world, are now going to move across stronger supply chains, like the new Calcasieu Bridge. We are literally building the future of this country, and now we got to finish the job. We are in the business of building bridges, literal and figurative, that are going to make us and future generations better off. So I'm so glad that we could be here to mark this milestone together. Congratulations and thanks to everybody who got us here, and thanks in advance for the hard work that is going to come so that we can come back here for a ribbon cutting and celebrate an excellent completed project. Thank you again for the chance to be here. All right, and I think we have time for a few reporter questions. Carrie from our department is quarterbacking, and I think you're up first.
Secretary Pete, the community is obviously thrilled with the $150 million, but they applied for $600 million, and so what everyone wants to know is this other $450 million in the works? Do you expect us to get it from the federal government? And when do you predict we'll see a new bridge over there?
So on project timelines and dates, I'm going to defer to the state, but I know they've done a lot of good thinking and work on how to make the most of the federal dollars we can bring and put together, as was mentioned, the right combination of other funding sources to make it happen. Dr. Wilson, you want to speak a little more to that?
So, yeah, great question. We started this project far in advance of the bipartisan infrastructure law, as the governor said, not having any resources to be able to build this project. The state put up the first 85. We did ask for $600 million, and I think you saw the competitiveness that the secretary talked about, having funded 9 of 138 applications, and very few of them got, if any, in this particular pot, got 100% of what they've asked for, and that's been the standard for discretionary programs through USDOT for a number of years. But this was the third largest mega grant application, and because of the timing and the urgency to have a bridge, we believe that the model that we pursued in terms of a public-private partnership and the $800 million that we have plus the $40 million a year will give us more than what we need to maximize the ability to keep tolls low on that project and to deliver it and build in a model for additional revenue that states and locals and other entities might want to contribute to that. So we're very satisfied with the $150 million. It's the largest we've ever received, and it's going to go a long way to make this bridge a reality. Without it, we would not be in a position to offer what I believe will be the most reasonable, all of the above toll opportunity for citizens across this country to take advantage of, not just residents here in Lake Charles.
You think it'll be in my lifetime?
So absolutely, I think it'll be in your lifetime. With all that we have done in the last 5 years, and I will acknowledge the innovative procurement team and the DOTD engineering staff and the project manager, Paul Vaught, over there, who've managed this over the last 2 years. We're going to receive proposals in the second quarter of this year. I'm nodding, right, Paul? Okay. And then we will make decisions in the summer of this year, and we will have a contract signed with a developer before the end of 2023, provided we have an acceptable toll rate that's available to the public. That will be under contract this year for the design, financing, construction, and operations of this project. And from that point, I think we're at 6 to 7 years of construction, but that's going to be a part of the bids. We calculate that and factor that in the evaluation process. So this is more real than ever before, and any other approach, from my professional experience and those who do these types of mega projects, and the Secretary has really created a new opportunity to help communities deliver mega projects. Without this approach, I do not see this bridge moving forward, given the vast cost and the risk associated with building it.
Our next question is from Elena with the Advocate. U.S. interstate system has traditionally been free. This bridge has a toll likely attached to it. Should Americans expect to see more tolls on the interstate system going forward? And what are your thoughts on implementing payments to travel on the interstate system?
Well, the interstate system is national, but conditions vary from one local area to another. I grew up about a mile from 8090 passing through Indiana, where we didn't know it as 8090, we knew it as the toll road, because that's how it's kept up. Other areas don't rely on that source of funding, but maybe do rely on a higher level of gas tax or other funding sources that are part of the partnership that keeps it going. Part of what we aim for in the U.S. Department of Transportation is to meet local states and communities where they are, dealing with the realities on the ground and coming up with the most responsible means of funding infrastructure. And we recognize that that's going to look different from state to state. But what we also know is a lot of these things couldn't get out of the starting box unless there was a higher level of federal funding. That's why it was so important to the president, so important to the country, and so important to a lot of people on both sides of the aisle who worked with us to get those federal dollars that are going to make the difference. And that's part of why we're so excited to bring this $150 million here to Southwest Louisiana.
All right, our last question is from Dawson with KLFY.
How's it going? I'm not really sure who can answer the question, but I'm sure we can figure it out. I was reading up a lot on the bridge and understand there was a lot of poor ratings in the past. I was just wanting to see how we would be able to meet the standards, up-to-date standards to be able to get a proper bridge and be able to have a good structure for, say, 50 years down in the future.
Sounds like a good question for Dr. Wilson.
We have my local TV station. So the bridge does have ratings, and when you build an infrastructure 70 years old, there's only so much that you can do from 70 years ago to bring it up to speed to today's standard. It's important for you to note, and you may remember this, we just spent, I want to say $68 million rehabbing the main deck of the 210 bridge to ensure its viability in terms of an alternative. And prior to that, we maintained the existing structure with a major overhaul for maintenance to ensure its public safety. First and foremost, if the bridge was unsafe, it would be closed. And so while we cannot necessarily just add shoulders, reduce the steepness, widen the lanes, eliminate the height restriction, those are things that we cannot do, but the bridge has been adequately maintained, but recognize that it's not going to get better until it gets replaced, and that's why we're moving forward. The other thing I will tell you is it's much more expensive for us to maintain that bridge than it will be for a new bridge, because this new bridge will be the best maintained bridge in the state of Louisiana for the foreseeable future. And so we can't guarantee that the ratings are going to change on this bridge, but we are absolutely committed to ensuring its safe usage during construction and ultimately with seeing its retirement and removal from where you see it today.
That concludes our questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again for having us over.
I made the first sunburn of the year. Yes, sir. Won't be the last.
I know Already? Hi.